I think you may know the occasion today is triple. We have the patron saint of our diocese, St. John Fisher, we're celebrating today. We're celebrating the jubilees of our priests who were ordained 25 and 50 years, and really all the anniversaries of our priests. And thirdly, we're using this occasion to bring to a sort of a formal close the year for priests proclaimed by Pope Benedict XVI last year. And to make it an especially wonderful occasion, we invited Archbishop Dolan to come and preach at the Mass, and we're delighted to have him. And I think you all know him, so let me just turn over the table to Archbishop Timothy Dolan.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for the invite. One of the reasons I'm thrilled to be here is because of Bishop Clark. We go way back. When I was a seminarian in Rome at the North American College, he was my spiritual director and my confessor. So you're not going to say anything else. But I love, part of my duties as Archbishop of New York would be the other dioceses in the state. Although I don't have any juridical authority over them, it's sort of an honorary bond that I would feel with all the Catholics in the state of New York and all my brother bishops. So I'm delighted to be here. And I go anywhere, anytime, anyhow, anyway to celebrate priesthood and to affirm our wonderful priests. So when I got this gracious invitation, I jumped at it. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm all yours. I appreciate your interest. How can I help you? Anything you're interested in?
Do you think that fewer Catholics are being as faithful and going to church?
Oh, I'd hate to say, there's no way we could not admit that. We bishops are aware of the sobering statistics that are coming out and which keep us awake at night, worrying about a declining Mass attendance, worrying about a diminishment of fidelity among our Catholic people. Thanks be to God, there's tremendous vitality and fidelity in other areas, but yeah, there's no use denying that it's a tremendous pastoral problem for us, that there's a unfortunate decline in Sunday Mass attendance. Thanks be to God, the statistics show that that's sort of leveling out, it isn't plummeting anymore, but there's no denying that.
How do you address that?
Oh, we were just talking about it yesterday.
Yesterday
We were together
meeting in New York.
Yeah, we had all the bishops, and we spent a good hour on that because that's the major thing. Now, let's put it in perspective. We're not the only ones. You know, every religion says, hey, we got the same thing. I was sharing with the bishops yesterday in work that I relish very much in the Jewish-Catholic dialogue. We had rabbis and bishops meeting to discuss the sobering results of what we call this Pew Center study that kind of documented what we've all known in our gut, that, uh-oh, our Mass attendance is going down. And the Jewish rabbis were saying, yeah, we got the same statistics. What are we going to do about it? Part of it, not that we're blaming, we're simply realistic, part of it, of course, is a cultural phenomenon, that the bonds and the cohesiveness that used to kind of gel around what you might call an intact Catholic culture is now evaporating. Some of that is good, some of that isn't so good. And one of the things that is not good is that people feel perhaps less of an adhesion to the religion of their upbringing. And we got to do something about that. That has evangelical dimensions, that has catechetical dimensions. Sorry to use these fancy words. It simply means we got to be better in getting out in a more creative, cogent way the truth and the attraction of Catholicism. We know that. That's probably that's been the major challenge of being a bishop or a pastor since Pentecost, and so it shouldn't surprise us that we're going through it now. I think that's my phone. It's probably my mom. I told her to call if they were asking tough questions. Sorry for the distraction.
Bishop Clark, if you could weigh in on that, even just the issue of attracting people to Mass.
Yeah, well, I'll refer to that discussion we had yesterday at Seth in New York with all the bishops of our state. For example, you look at the culture that the Archbishop referred to just earlier. There was an intact Catholic culture, but there were also parameters and I'd say unspoken agreements some years ago. E.g., when I was a boy, it was unheard of that there would be activities scheduled on Sunday morning. Today, if you look at our suburban ball fields, there are soccer games, baseball games, and in the winter in gyms. It's just a reality.
Shopping centers open.
Yeah, exactly. Another good example. There is not that, I'm going to say, cultural observance of, I'm going to use the term, the sanctity of the Sabbath, whether it's the Saturday, Friday, or Sunday Sabbath, depending on the tradition. It's just something we didn't create, but we have to deal with and cope with. People see, unfortunately, I think, church as one more nice option for their Sunday mornings. And that has a big impact on us. Now, I'm not ascribing it all to that, but I think it's one example of the kind of thing. How do we cope with that? It's a reality not of our creation, but has a big impact on it.
And it challenges us because we as bishops, pastors, pastoral leaders, whoever they may be, we can no longer take for granted the faith, the allegiance, the cohesion of our people. We got to win them. We almost have to be salesmen and saleswomen again, and that's not bad because that's what Jesus asked us to do. So we can't coast. We can't wait for the people to come for us. I think we can learn an awful lot from our evangelical brothers and sisters who don't take it for granted. They're out there knocking on doors. They're inviting people. We don't do that. We're still kind of we're almost still in that mindset that, well, people are Catholic, they're going to come. And thanks be to God, a good chunk of them still do. They treasure their Catholic roots. They love them. They cling to them. They want to nurture them. Thanks be to God that basis is still there. But, boy, do we ever have to go after and re-invite those who have drifted away.
Sure. I mean, when I was a boy, I grant you, that's going back when the glaciers were still carving out the Finger Lakes, but I mean, I wouldn't dream of not going to church on Sunday. And all of my friends did. We just went. I'm not saying we went like robots. We went with an affection and out of faith. But today now parents will say to me, I can't get my son to go to church on Sunday. I mean, my mother didn't have that problem. It's just a different mindset, a different culture, a different way of looking at the world. And as the Archbishop said, that's not all bad, because the young people who do come are coming out of a real choice that they make to choose this when they have so many other claims in their times and energies and interests on the Sabbath.
Archbishop Dolan, I know your time is limited, but I want to jump in and get this question asked. I see in the baby boom generation, young boys that I grew up with or that I've met who are priests now, when they get to be retirement age, if it's 70 or 72, whatever it is, I see a marked drop-off in the numbers of priests that are able. What are the contingency plans for when you don't have enough people to go around, even in the cluster churches?
Sure, good question. It's another one that we look right in the eyes all the time. First of all, you're talking to a church historian. So when we talk about the vocation crisis or the need for priests and sisters and brothers and deacons, that's always been with the church. Now, in our recent memory, when we're looking back at the 40s and 50s, that was a time of a boom when we did have many, but that was somewhat extraordinary in the history of the church. So this is a challenge that we've always faced as a church. What do? Well, we never give up in inviting young men to the priesthood. We never give up in our prayer and encouragement, and God's people are particularly effective in this. And we also look for ways to see that others can share in the service and the sacred ministry that traditionally priests have held only to themselves. So a great gift, especially in the last, 3 decades, has been that the church has been moved by the Holy Spirit to call men and women to their rightful place in the church as ambassadors of Jesus Christ, who are baptized and confirmed, in sharing in some of the roles traditionally that only priests have. I would say this Diocese of Rochester is particularly noted for that, and I congratulate them for it. But throughout the whole church in the United States and the world, you look at what's going on in Africa and South America with the role of catechists in villages. So God will never let us down, and we always make lemonade out of lemons. And we've got some lemons in the past decades in that one of the lemons that we're dealing with is that we don't, at this present stage, have enough priests to meet the pastoral demand. So we make lemonade. And we say, well, thanks be to God, let's call and farm and empower other in God's people in the church to do some of the things that priests have traditionally done. Now, there are unique things that only a priest can do. So we never waver in our crusade to find more priests. But There are alternate answers that I think the church has been very devoted to.
Quickly, does the bread and wine have to be consecrated at the Mass? So you need a priest at every
You would always
Mass?
need a priest to celebrate the Eucharist and to consecrate the bread and wine into the body and blood of Christ. You don't need a priest to distribute that and to lead God's
That has to
people
be
in prayer.
done at the service, correct? At the
Yes,
Mass.
but then there would be, we Catholics have the beautiful tradition of reserving the Holy Eucharist. So if there are places where on a given occasion a priest can't get to, the Blessed Sacrament, the Holy Eucharist, that was formally consecrated by a priest in another Mass, could be distributed. It's taken to the sick. God's people do that very effectively. That'll never replace the Mass, but at least we have the consolation of knowing that God's people are hearing God's Word and receiving the sacrament of the Holy Eucharist.
I have to cut it off just because they have to vest, but I just wanted one last thing. Archbishop or Bishop, is there anything they didn't ask you that you want to say?
No, there are things they didn't ask, and I'm glad they did.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.